So, introductions. Calamity, would you like to go first?
Sure thing. My name is Calamity. My pronouns are she, they. I am a content creator as well as a game developer. I do a lot of charity streams on Twitch, and I also play a variety of games, everything from RPGs to indies, though anything with a fantasy story is probably going to be my favorite. And in game development, I am a narrative designer, and I'm actually starting to dip my toe into producing. So yeah.
For joining us. Thank you for being with us.
Of course.
Yay! Dawn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Dawn, pronouns she, her. I'm currently making a career change to game development, having worked in marketing for 6 years now, 5 of them in marketing for museums and galleries. My transition to game dev started with Code Coven, actually, the Intro to Game Making course earlier this year, which I completed in April, which has been a completely transformative experience. And since then, I've been making games as a solo developer, but also part of teams for game jams, like the recent Safe Spaces Now jam with Code Coven and UN Women, and currently looking for my first role as either a game designer or a game writer. And this Code Coven did an amazing job creating a safe space, and like my trajectory, what I was able to create and learn was definitely positively influenced by the space that they created.
I forgot to mention that I also was part of Code Coven. I did their intro to gaming course in the spring, and I just finished the summer program with Facebook Gaming. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. I think we all have actually, as in the say for Lauren, but Lauren's on the team, of course. But I'm Carla Reyes. My pronouns are she, her. I'm head of business development at Code Coven. My primary role in the industry has been as a product manager, working for larger studios. So I was at Square Enix and now at Niantic. But I actually also participated in Code Coven's first pilot Unity development bootcamp, and that was in 2019. Which was also how I sort of transitioned into the games industry. And I just loved the mission and vision and haven't been able to look back since. And I've been supporting the team with building out the program since.
Yay! Thank you so much, Dawn, and thank you so much, Carla, for introducing yourselves. And hi, I'm Lauren. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm Code Coven's community manager. What did I do before Code Coven? I am a community management and fundraising freelancer for indie developers, though Code Coven has the majority of my time now, so yay! What else? I come from a more corporate marketing background, and I have a greyhound who is sleeping as they do for, like 16 hours a day. I'm so jealous. I wish that could be my life. Which is beautiful. So yeah, this panel is all about creating safe spaces online, and we're going to discuss whether those some top tips, whether those safe spaces are in the workplace, in a more public community, what we really look for in allies, and then we're going to wrap it up. And yes, I will do my best to interact with chat. I'm sure we all will. Please throw any questions up in the Q&A column. Let's get started. So, oh my gosh, Carla, no! Just as I say, let's get started. What? Oh, it's fine.
She froze for a bit there. She's probably going to be right back. Yay!
Hello. Yay! That was so unprompted. Apologies. I don't know how that happened.
It was great timing. Just like, let's get started. Okay, goodbye, Carla. So, first question. What is a great sign or something that you value that shows you're in a safe space? And because I started with Calamity last time, I'm going to start with Dawn this time.
Hey, no problem. I think a good sign is when they're willing to have conversations, whether that's within kind of just the work team or if that's company-wide. I think if someone wants to have a genuine conversation, they're open to learning, listening to other people's experiences and growing. During the recent Safe Spaces Now jam, Our game was about microaggressions, and we're a really diverse group across genders, ethnicities, sexualities, and we talked about our own experiences and tried to integrate those into the game. And we all learned like so much about experiences that weren't our own, and that really is going to help us to kind of avoid making those mistakes in the future and being kinder to other people. So I think if someone's willing to have that I say genuine conversation rather, about it, that's a really good sign that they're open-minded and want to grow. And what do you want to include all people?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It can be really hard to start those genuine conversations, but I think if folks are willing to make the effort, then it shows they care.
Yeah.
Carla, how about you?
Yeah, I think the ability to expose or express vulnerability is really important, and being able to foster a space in which people are comfortable doing so is definitely, for me, I think one of the ways in which you can really cultivate what it means to have your inner safe space. I guess my perspective kind of comes from maybe more of a traditional corporate background, right? It's like there's this perception that in a professional environment, you should sort of strip yourself of your emotions, but we're actually working in an industry where we're highly emotional beings, where we're passionate, we're creators, and being able to foster an environment in which we can have those genuine conversations, as Dawn was just saying, but also express our emotions freely and openly is really one of the most powerful ways, I think, to actually be more innovative and get creative ultimately.
Yes. Yeah, I think that super links into what Dawn was saying, especially about being openly vulnerable, which can be really difficult, especially if you're new to a company or a company is super large and you don't know everyone, or you only know a small percentage of the people. How about you, Calamity?
Yeah, just to echo something Dawn said, that is a really good one, is that being open to learn from the get-go, being open to hear not just from like the higher ups, but also maybe the newer employees, people who are just coming in, being willing to learn from everyone, and making their voices, expressing that their voices are important and heard just as much, and their opinions are valued just as much as everyone else. And also just having like diverse leadership, especially newer like environments. I think that's a really good one. Just because I understand that some things have been established, and over time it hasn't really been something like that's been focused on. But I think it's really nice to have, I don't know, maybe just an open approach to maybe bringing people up into that space.
Yeah, I feel super lucky and super empowered with Code Coven's leadership, Tara and Carla, and our wonderful head of curriculum, Cheska. It was definitely kind of a whole new type of environment where all of the leadership were women, and everything is just like, how can I empower you? How, like, every day. And I love it. It's really wholesome. Yeah. So if anyone would like an example, I can highly recommend Code Coven's leadership. So I think that leads on to another question quite well, which is, how could leadership in a company begin to discuss safe spaces online in a comfy and safe way? And I'm going to kick that over to Carla.
Sure. Yeah, I actually have a good example from my time at Square Enix. We would host these bi-weekly informal discussions all around diversity and inclusion topics. And it was actually just a really nice way to have this optional session for people to join in and be able to feel comfortable, where we weren't necessarily hyper-focused on work, right? It's just, this is a space for us to discuss interesting topics that we all care about. And if from an ally's perspective too, there was an educational piece and raising awareness too, which was nice, because people were able to join, and even if they weren't first and foremost thinking about this topic, they could listen and learn about it, right? So just going back to what we were saying earlier about being able to learn, and I think that's definitely a small step that actually ends up having a more profound impact than you think, because you roll up with your coffee and you're there and you're chatting, but it ends up turning into some of the outcomes of those discussions ended up being implemented into creating initiatives like proper company-wide or team-wide initiatives. So that's definitely a starting point that I would recommend.
Yeah, I can also imagine kind of bringing in production to be able to facilitate the timing for this space. So it's definitely, you know, a whole company or discipline-wide thing that takes so many people to action, and I love the collaboration of that sort. Calamity, how about you?
Yeah, I think regular check-ins are really good, and in a very genuine way, in a way that's not just like checking off a box, like, okay, we had our diversity and inclusion topic today. Approaching it as something that is important, approaching the people that work for you as not just like cogs in your machine, as actual people with feelings and emotions who, you know, maybe have their own stuff going on in their lives, and you know, might have opinions on things that are going on in the environment, and just being open to discussing them genuinely, because you can tell when it's more performative or it's more, like I said, just like checking off a box. And the only way to do that is just to care about other people, have empathy, you know, be vulnerable yourself, I think is a really good way to do that.
Yeah, and I definitely want to come back to that topic of red flags and performativity because, yeah, I think it's good to know when that's happening. Dawn, how about you?
Well, yeah, really similar to Carla and Calamity. I would say starting with the employees and getting their input. I think if there's going to be like a company-wide initiative, it'll be really important for the foundations to be based on like the feedback of the employees, and so everyone has buy-in, and kind of what's created actually works for the people in the company, and it's not just imposed on people without any regard for how they feel or their actual experiences.
So true. I'm not going to name names, but I think we've seen a few examples in the industry recently where really shows that employees do care. And if we include employees' voices, it's going to be a great place. So let's do it. I'd also be super interested to hear from chat if you all have any ideas on how leadership can support you, or what's a sign you look for in a workplace that lets you know it's a safe space. And while folks think about that, I'm gonna go back to what Calamity was saying before about performativity and red flags. So I would like to know, what is a red flag that highlights a workspace you're in isn't safe? And yeah, Calamity, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can start. I think just touching back on that like performative thing, you can really tell when someone is just, like I said, checking off a box. So if there is an issue, they say, well, we did this, it's on our checklist, we checked that off the box today. I really think that not just having kind of like what I said before, not just having like people in higher up positions or people who are more senior to the company valuing their opinions, as well as newer employees, you know, lower level employees, people who are just coming in, because they can always bring in like new and fresh perspectives. So when people sort of like have this idea of, oh, you have to like earn your right to have an opinion here, you know, I've been in environments like that, where it's like, oh, if you put in the time, then we'll actually care about what you think and feel. That's a big red flag, and I have definitely had situations where I've been in those. And I know for larger companies it is difficult, but not even having a place to maybe approach someone in that situation, like maybe not saying, here's a person that you can talk to if you're having an issue, I think is a big red flag as well.
I agree. I echo Calamity there. I think there's an accountability piece as well that's important if you are going to create a platform or forum for everybody to be able to contribute to that feedback loop. When it comes to actually fostering equality, you're absolutely right, Calamity, right? It shouldn't just be about the people in leadership who are making the decisions, or, you know, they have to be listening to everybody and there is a reason that everybody is involved in that organization, right? If they were hired, it was for a reason, and therefore they should contribute to creating a safer space. But then once that feedback is given, I think following up and making sure that there is action that is taken based on that feedback is super essential, because yes, you can create the surveys and that's really important, but it's what you do with that data, and it's making sure that you are actually seeing that through and executing against it, that will create something more powerful.
And Dawn, would you like to share anything on this topic?
Yeah, something that I think for a long time, I was always looking for something like someone saying, using like a derogatory term or behaving inappropriately to be the red flag. And something that I've been learning is to look for the ways that that culture kind of manifests itself in smaller ways. Things like, is it normal for people to be interrupted in meetings? And if it is it happening to a particular subset of people? If someone makes an inappropriate comment or joke, do people laugh at it? Do they join in on the bits? Do they brush it off? Are there any repercussions for that employee? And kind of looking for those smaller instances, which I think speaks to the wider culture of the workplace. And I think if that kind of behavior is acceptable, being disrespectful or hateful or invasive towards other people, then you're in an unsafe space. So that's something that I've been trying to keep a bigger eye out for.
And that totally comes through. If I remember correctly, you said your Game Jam game was about microaggressions, and I know I've played it. I definitely get that vibe. Like, I think you covered it really well, and I think you should definitely drop that link in chat so other folks can get an opinion on it. And yeah, Erin, I totally agree. So Erin says, flag for me is folks trying to but my concerns. I like, just off the top of my head, just wondering if our wonderful panelists have had any experience with that, or it's totally okay if you haven't.
I definitely have. There was a concern actually where it was about my physical health. I won't name the company, it is a well-known one, but there was a concern about my physical health, and they treated me kind of like they didn't believe me. And when I said that, doing the job was, causing me physical pain, was there any way to do it? They're like, well, yeah, that's just how it is. Like, that's just part of the job. Like, that's just something that happens. I'm like, for me to be in physical pain and potentially permanently hurt myself, which unfortunately did happen to an extent. So I've definitely dealt with that.
Oh no. Are you able to hear Lauren?
Hear you, Lauren?
Oh no, I can't hear Lauren.
Now?
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
Hey, sometimes my mic doesn't work. I was just saying, I'm really sorry to hear you experience that. Is there something that you could advise folks do better in the future?
Definitely, like, listen to people. Like, if they're having a concern, I think there's this mindset, maybe, I don't know if it's like all over, but definitely in the States, there's this mindset that, people are just, complaining. They're just trying to get out of work. They're just trying to make excuses. And like, maybe just listen. Maybe there's something that you can fix to make things better for everyone else, but nobody else has been able to speak up on it because you haven't created an environment that makes them feel safe to. Or you've kind of said, oh, if you tend to stay quiet, you'll do well in this company if you just kind of are agreeable about everything. So I think just listening, honestly, just listening and having some empathy,
I'm all about that empathy. Yes, I 100% agree with you. I'm looking at the time and thinking, oh my gosh, I've written so many questions. We're running out of time. So I'm going to switch it over to more public-facing community, online safe spaces. And so aside from Code Coven, who we've already mentioned, and my baby that is our community, are there any communities you can think of who are wonderful examples of safe online spaces, and why do you feel that way? And I'm gonna start with Carla. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna start with Dawn.
Okay. Oh no. Hopefully Carla
timing.
can rejoin us soon. It's like the
That
internet
seems
knows.
so intentional, right? Okay. Are you able to hear me okay? But you can start with Dawn if you'd prefer, and then we can come back to me because now we've just picked it over. So apologies.
No, it's okay. Sure, Dawn, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I'm really lucky to be a part of the Limit Break mentorship program this year, which is pairing people from marginalized groups with mentors in the games industry. And I think they've done a really good job of establishing the values of the mission from the get-go. It's very clear on social media, on their website, when you apply, kind of what the mission is, and that kind of hateful behaviour and being isn't okay, and it's not welcome. And it's really great to kind of hear diversity and inclusion be a tentpole of conversation. It's not kind of just like an add-on, like what Calamity was saying earlier about ticking a box. It's definitely like kind of a part of the program. There are like roundtables about it, and it's really nice to be able to talk about like harassment and so on, and not kind of feel on edge or feel like you have to hold back how you're feeling or your opinions. Because people have those shared values. There's a Slack channel for the program, and there's a whole channel about mental health and support, and people reach out and they're like, does anyone have any resources that they can share about this issue that I'm having? And it's everyone looking out for each other, and like Calamity was saying about being empathetic. And it makes everything so much easier when you can kind of be your full self.
I can definitely attest to that. I had the privilege of participating in the Limit Break mentorship program. And in terms of other communities too, I personally am very grateful for Latinx in gaming. So they also have a Discord server that's very active and supportive. And I realized that just having groups where you have any kind of cultural affinity to is always really important. For me personally, that was very exciting to see, because I'm living in a place where I'm not actually too culturally connected to a Latinx community. So it's been really a really great way to be able to join that remotely and be able to meet people from all over the world. And apart from that, actually, yeah, there are a lot of different spaces, like Bayman Games as well. Honestly, they just launched a Discord server just a few weeks ago, actually, and they also have a mentorship program, which I know has been really supportive of the BAME BIPOC community in the UK and a little bit globally as well.
Yeah, I think some spaces that mine are more like in the content creation space, just because of all the networking that kind of tends to happen there. But two examples are some of the stream teams I'm part of. So Brown Girl Gamer Code is a group focused on empowering women of color in gaming, technology, STEM, so they kind of cover like all of those things. And then Emporium, which is a stream team that is just based on like mental health and diversity and such. Both groups do a really, really good job of, from the get-go, establishing kind of like what Don said, like the rules, establishing, the expectations, saying very clearly what they do allow and what they don't allow and what they expect. They're also very good at learning from the community. They're very good at getting feedback constantly. Emporium does a wonderful thing where when they bring on like new official members, they will do a very intensive vetting process of the applicants. And then before they announce them, they'll actually come to the people who are already members and say, what do you think about this? Just because you never know, somebody might have something to say that, and it's like all like very confidential. They'll say like, DM me. But somebody might have something to say about someone that's not public knowledge or something you can't just find on social media. And I think that's a really important thing that they do, because it makes everyone comfortable and it makes sure that the people they bring in are, cultivating that safe space. So that's something about Emporium that I super admire. And Brown Girl Gamer Code is also really good at, if they have resources, especially for mental health, both of them are pretty good at this, but they have spaces where you can vent. And they also open up their leadership to say, like, if you need to come to me, that's totally fine, you know, and they're both are very busy people. Vanna, who is the head of Emporium, and Brandy, who is the head of Brown Girl Gamer Code, extremely busy people, but they will always, even if not immediately, they will get back to you, and they will, you know, your concerns are very valid. Like, I've reached out to both of them about personal stuff, and I was treated like, you know, I wasn't just another member of the Discord, you know. It's very cool.
I love that so much. And what I'm hearing is listen to your community. If your community feels heard, you know, it's going to be good. And that link, I think that links back really well to listen to employees and value employees' advice. Yeah, I love this theme. I'm also seeing a theme of like mentorship and support and clear guidelines. I really love that clarity. So I'm curious, how do you advise someone responds when someone is making an online space unsafe for someone else? And I'm going to start with Carla.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge, right? But I think these are the types of challenges that we should welcome because we grow and learn from them, right? Not condoning that type of behavior, but I'm saying that we should lean into them and not be averse to it, right? So if there is an environment in which there is somebody who is creating an unwelcome or unsafe space environment, then definitely I think leaders should come in at that point and approach the person that is, for lack of a better word, the perpetrator, I suppose, in this instance. If there's a nicer, more lighthearted term, then I would prefer to use that. But yeah, I think that you should always try and listen, right, to understand the perspectives and what has caused this conflict, and try and determine how can we problem solve. Once you've independently spoken to the parties involved, then I think it's worth having an open conversation. And the way to really do this effectively is if you've already been starting to have those open conversations previously, like we've been saying, right? If you've been cultivating an environment where people should be comfortable expressing themselves, hopefully you can avoid this type of conflict. But if it does come up, then that's definitely the initial approach. I think being able to first understand, listening, right, as we've been saying, and then coming back together with everyone to try and come up with a solution.
Yeah, definitely agreed to all of that. Sorry, my brain just kind of glitched for a second because I was listening to Carla being like, yeah, love all of it. It's great. So I'm like, wait, I have to answer the question now. I as a content creator, I do run my own Discord, so I do kind of have my own community that I cultivate. And something that I learned in one of like maybe the first like confrontations that I had is that you kind of expect like something like that's going to be like, oh, someone's intentionally trying to like come in here and like be hurtful or like, mess up my community. But that's not the case. Some people are just, interacting, they don't have any ill intent. So I think approaching kind of, again, speaking on empathy, approaching that person not with you're messing up my community, you're making things bad here, but kind of understanding where they're coming from. Because I had a situation where I was dealing with someone who was dealing with a lot of mental health issues and expressed it a lot in the Discord to a point where it was making people uncomfortable because of the things that they were expressing when it came to their mental health. So I did speak to the leadership about it first, like kind of the moderators that I have, and asked them about their thoughts and approach on it. And then I took their feedback and then approached the person personally, just through a DM, just to try to like talk it out, provide resources. And then I also kind of established how can I make sure that I prevent this in the future, while also saying we value mental health here, but there is a point where you need to, we want to provide, we want to provide resources if you really, really need serious help. We want to provide resources without backlash, because that was unfortunately an issue.
Definitely. Yes. I'm loving this. Loving the empathy theme. My heart is so warm. Dawn, would you like to add anything?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with everything Carla and Calamity said. Kind of going back to what I said earlier about having the conversations and talking to people, because a lot of the time, sometimes people don't realise kind of the impact that the things that they're saying can have on other people, and it's kind of having a conversation and pointing it out and explaining can be really helpful. And I also think you can tell the difference when somebody is unintentionally kind of said something that's problematic, and then when someone is actually purposefully going out of their way to kind of to be hurtful or to kind of to make someone feel uncomfortable. And I kind of think that's when that requires a little bit more of that stronger response, and again bringing in leadership, like Carla said, to help with that situation.
I love it. Yeah. Yep. I love that everyone's mentioning leadership in a way that makes me feel like you can depend on your leadership in your own experiences. So my heart
May I
is
just
very
add
warm for
one
you.
point to that leadership point? Actually, Lauren, just to say, like, when I say leaders, I don't even necessarily mean the designated leaders within an organization, right? I think cultivating a safe space is one in which you empower everybody, as Lauren was saying about what we do at Code Coven, so that anybody can rise as a leader in that situation. And I think that's really important to note. Sorry.
I agree. Totally agree. I'd also like to shout out to Susanna's point about in chat that we're all strangers on the internet, and the majority of us aren't trained therapists, and that's something we do say in Code Coven's Discord in our own community, is that we really care about your well-being, but we're not professionals. But here's a list of people who are professional or companies that are professional, and please go and talk to them. But yeah, I love that point. I identify with that a lot. Thank you for saying it.
Yeah, I immediately liked it. I was like, yes, you're not trained therapist.
Yeah, it's true.
And even if we are, like, we're on the internet, that's not really what we're doing here generally. So.
Yep. I'm gonna shift the topics over to allies and how allies can support these safe spaces. So in a safe space, that's the wrong way to start that question. What do you appreciate in an ally, or what personality traits, what actions do you appreciate in an ally within a safe space? And I'm gonna start with Calamity.
I guess when it comes to an ally in a safe space, or in a space that is, in a safe space, I think that someone who is willing to listen and learn, someone who doesn't, I guess, like, back to that performative thing, because you can tell when someone's like, look at me, I'm diverse. I don't know how to say it, but like, I'm woke. Like, I'm trying to like not say woke, but there is a trend, unfortunately, of people who say they're allies, and they don't have ill intention, but it becomes a look at me being diverse instead of highlighting the voices of marginalized groups. And I think when I do see allies deferring to those voices and saying, listen to these people, speak up to them, or speak up, listen to them, when they speak up, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, tongue-tied. I think that's a really good trait that shows a true ally, because they're not just doing it to put on a badge that says I support diversity and inclusion. It's that they truly, genuinely believe in that. And yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think I have to give a shout out to an ally that has been so instrumental in a lot of the work that I've been doing in the games industry. But Ed Perkins, who was the head of my team at Square Enix, is a phenomenal ally. And I think one of the reasons why is not just what Calamity mentioned, but just the ability to recognize that you don't know everything about specific subcultures and groups. And I think all of us can say that, right? Our world is so diverse and nuanced, and we, even as EDI practitioners or people who strongly advocate for diversity and inclusion, it is a constant learning process. I'm learning every day, even though we're in it, right? Because it's evolving so much. So being able to recognize that you don't have all the answers, but you want to be able to enable and empower people to help find those solutions that do create the safe spaces. And Ed was really somebody that did that. You know, he was somebody who empowered everyone on the team to be able to share their perspectives and just educate everybody as well, so that we could constantly have a learning environment.
Did my mic work?
Oh, you're back. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Hi.
There you go. I was like, it's gonna happen any minute now.
Next tech issue. Here we go. Tick. I was just asking, Dawn, would you like to add anything?
I always really appreciate when allies kind of validate your experiences. I think sometimes when you're on the receiving end of problematic behavior or someone being in an unsafe space, and sometimes you can feel, is that in my head? Am I imagining this? And sometimes people can minimize the experience and say you're overreacting, or you're being overly sensitive, or you're looking too far into it. And I think I really appreciate when an ally is like, no, this happened, it's not in your head, it wasn't okay. And I had a recent experience when an ally pointed out, like, it's not on you, it's on them. Like, I know you're feeling really bad about what happened, but that's a reflection of their character, not yours. Even though their behavior is designed to kind of minimize you and devalue how you see yourself. I think that's really important. Someone who validates the experience and listens to you.
Definitely, I definitely agree. And yes, Carla, we will totally. Oh, Carla's back! Yay!
Hi.
Yes, that was awesome. Welcome. Yeah, and that's great because y'all kind of addressed my second question about allies, which is describe a time you've seen someone be a good ally. So that's great. I mean, Calamity, you look like you're thinking about an example. You might not be.
Yeah. I was like trying to like think of a distinct one, because I am fortunate to know a lot of allies who are truly allies and just very helpful. Here, someone else go first. I'm trying to think of like a specific situation.
I'm sorry, I lost the question because maybe when I left.
No, I was just saying, like, y'all have already addressed my second question about allies. Is just like, can you give me an example or of a time that someone's been a good ally? And I think y'all have already done that, which is lovely. Okay, I see, Carla, you said something about look at the Q&A. Okay, so if I just grab the most upvoted question, which is, what is the best way, in your opinion, to approach HR about any accommodations that are needed when you are also dealing with extreme social anxiety? And I wholly relate to this. I am extremely socially anxious, so I'm very curious about what y'all are going to say. So to reiterate, that was how to best approach a HR team or HR person about any accommodations you need when you are socially anxious. I don't have an order for this question. Is there anyone who would like to jump in?
This is
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Calamity, please.
I was just gonna say, for HR, that is kind of intimidating. So I myself, I am autistic, so social situations aren't my forte. I really struggle with them, especially because I have been told, you know, over time, I am late diagnosed. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. So a lot of what's in my mind is like, oh, I'm just oversensitive. Oh, I'm just like this and that. And I think, honestly, it's just asking for like maybe a closed door UNHR, because actually I actually think I did have that once where I had a closed door situation where I just said, I need to like talk about something that's bothering me. Can you just like give me the space, you know, admitting maybe that you're a little anxious. Hopefully there is a safe space for that. Ideally, but I know that's not always the case, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a difficult one. I would say maybe like have notes. I don't know if that's like have talking points, because I know like when you get into a situation, sometimes you just like blank out and you're like, I don't remember what I even came in here for. But maybe just having talking points to kind of like keep you in track or remind you of the things that you want to kind of point out. That is hard though.
This theme of anxiety has been amplified by the pandemic, of course, right? And we've been working in an environment that's been fully remote up until now, and most people still are. So I think this is a really like topical theme. What I've seen in terms of some of the like actions that HR has taken or leaders have taken in organizations, again, like going back to what Comedy was saying, is if somebody can address it with someone they feel comfortable with, whether it's HR directly or if it's an ally within the organization who can advocate for that person, and often that could be a leader within the organization or the team. That's really helpful. But what I've seen to address anxiety, for example, is a lot of organizations actually recommend or even mandate you using the camera on Zoom, for example. But not everybody's comfortable with that, especially because there is this sort of disconnect. And sometimes people just really feel more comfortable being camera off. So that's just a small step, right? And I'm just one example of how you can accommodate somebody if they're not particularly comfortable, as long as they're still engaging in other ways, right? And I think that just being able to, again, going back to what we've been saying so much, reinforcing this concept of listening to people and making sure that there are allies within the team if that person who's experiencing anxiety is not comfortable directly reaching out to HR.
Dawn, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky in my workplace to have a manager who's very understanding and compassionate. I know that's not the same for everybody, but I know if that is an option for you, if you can have another member of the team kind of almost like be a champion for you, even if it's just sitting in meeting kind of like for moral support. For my personal situation, I would probably have a chat with my manager first, and kind of discuss the ways that we can make any accommodations that would still let me do my job properly, but would also make me feel a lot more comfortable and safe. And then when we had like an agreed kind of action plan, can go to HR and see if they can support us with that. I think probably having someone by your side, if it's just for moral support or to help champion your cause, could be helpful.
Love it so much. And I'm going to wrap us up there. I think that's a really wonderful ending point. I think we've had some really great discussions. Thank you so much to our lovely panelists for joining us today. And thank you for chat being so engaged with the conversation. I've seen some wonderful discussion. While I wrap up, panelists, please in chats, could you list your top piece of advice for creating a safe online space? Just the one piece of advice you'd like the audience to take away and be able to implement in their own spaces. And while y'all are doing that, what have I got to tell you about? So Code Coven has a booth today in the expo area. Please come and talk to us. You'll either meet our head of operations, Nata, our amazing producer, Kinsey, or our PR and marketing coordinator, Mylia, who is a star. They're going to want to talk to you about yourself, your goals, your aspirations, and also to find out if you're interested in our BIPOC scholarships for our current entry-level course, which is enrollment's happening, scholarships are happening. We'd love to have you around. It would be so good. And yeah, we will get through all the Q&A questions. That's kind of it from me. Oh, and panelists, if you would like to drop any contact details in the chats, that would be cool. I will be around in the networking area for Q&A discussions. Panelists, will any of y'all be around afterwards, or have you got to run away?
I can hang out.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yay.
I do unfortunately have to run away, but I am writing my point in the chat. So thank you so much. This was so lovely. Very grateful to be here. Have a good day, everyone.
Yay. Thank you so much, Women in Games. We have had an amazing time.